This news is funded by viewers like you. Please support our work at democracynow.org/give. Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. Israel's relentless attacks across the Gaza Strip killed at least 77 Palestinians over the past 24 hours. An Israeli strike on 2 schools turned shelters, killed at least 15 displaced Palestinians in Gaza City. Meanwhile, Israeli forces have continued their siege on North Gaza, with attacks reported in Beit Hanun. Israeli quadcopters were also seen shooting civilians in Jabalia al-Balad. Meanwhile, the UN General Assembly Thursday overwhelmingly approved a resolution asking the International Court of Justice to assess Israel's obligations to facilitate the delivery of UN and international aid to Palestinians in Gaza. Israel's repeatedly blocked the entry of life-saving aid into the besieged territory. In more related news, Doctors Without Borders said in a new report published Thursday that Israel's war on Gaza depicts clear signs of ethnic cleansing. In the occupied West Bank, Israeli settlers Friday set fire to a mosque in the village of Marda, spray-painting revenge and death to Arabs in Hebrew on the Muslim holy site. The Palestinian Foreign Ministry condemned the attack, calling on the UN to launch an investigation. This is Nasfat Al-Khufash, head of the Marda Village Council.
Today on Friday, Marda woke up to a systemic terror attack by a group of settlers who set fire to Bir al-Waladin Mosque. A number of settlers set fire and attempted an attack on a wider scale in the mosque. As you see the aftermath of this, along with writing racial slurs such as death to Arabs, and that they will burn this mosque to build a synagogue. These attacks are continuous and systematic by settler groups.
The attack on the mosque came as at least 6 Palestinians were killed across the West Bank, including an 80-year-old woman who was shot in the chest by Israeli forces during a raid in the Balata refugee camp near Nablus Thursday. In Tulkarm, at least 4 Palestinians were killed in an Israeli airstrike on a vehicle. Senior U.S. officials have arrived in Damascus on the first U.S. diplomatic mission to Syria in over a decade. The officials are expected to meet with members of HTS, Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, the armed Islamist group that helped overthrow Bashar al-Assad's regime earlier this month. The meeting's occurring even though HTS remains on the State Department's terrorist list. This comes as questions remain over the fate of Kurdish populations in Syria. A commander of the U.S.-backed Syrian Kurdish forces said it would agree to withdraw any non-Syrian Kurdish fighters from northern Syria if Turkey agrees to a complete ceasefire.
We said that we are ready to withdraw our forces from the border and for the area to be free of our forces and for the international security forces to be present instead of our forces. In addition to the presence of American forces in the area to supervise this area on the condition that there is a complete truce.
The Wall Street Journal reports an official in the Syrian Kurd civilian administrations directly appealed to Donald Trump to pressure Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan against sending troops into Syria. Meanwhile, press freedom groups have condemned the killing of 2 Kurdish women journalists, Cihan Belki and Nazim Dastam, by a Turkish drone as they were reporting on attacks on the Tishrin Dam on the outskirts of Kobani. Meanwhile, Syria's interim education minister reassured the nation that a new government will not restrict girls' access to education. On Thursday, Syrian youth and women gathered in Damascus to call for their rights to be respected in any new government.
We are here to participate as youths in order to be together hand in hand, to be a secular, democratic state where there is equality and maintenance of women's rights. So far, we do not know what the situation will be, and we are not attacking or judging anyone because it is still so early. But it is our right to hold on to our rights. It is our right to know where we are going to and participate together, as Syrians, to build a Syria for all.
Thousands of Amazon warehouse workers and delivery drivers at 7 facilities across 4 states, New York, Georgia, California, and Illinois, are entering a second day of an historic strike. After taking to the picket lines Thursday, it comes after Amazon refused to bargain fair contract as workers demand higher wages, better benefits, and safer working conditions. The Teamsters described it as the largest strike against Amazon in U.S. history. President Sean O'Brien said in a statement, quote, If your package is delayed during the holidays, you can blame Amazon's insatiable greed, unquote. Here in New York, police stormed the picket line at an Amazon facility in Queens, arresting an Amazon driver on strike and a Teamsters leader. They were both later released. On Wednesday, reports emerged of Amazon founder and Washington Post owner Jeff Bezos dining with President-elect Trump and tech billionaire Elon Musk at Mar-a-Lago. We'll have more on this story after headlines. As the Amazon action picks up steam, unionized Starbucks workers have launched 5 days of phased strikes as the coffee giant has repeatedly refused to bargain in good faith. Starbucks baristas in Los Angeles, Chicago, and Seattle are striking today. The action will escalate through Christmas Eve. Over 500 Starbucks stores nearly unanimously voted to approve the strike. The U.S. government appears to be hurtling towards a shutdown after the House voted down a new Trump-approved bill Thursday evening that included a 2-year suspension of federal debt limit. This comes after Trump and Elon Musk intervened to sink the previous bipartisan package. House Speaker Mike Johnson has until the end of the day to introduce and pass another spending measure before a partial shutdown is triggered tonight. An appeals court Thursday disqualified Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis from overseeing Georgia's election interference case against Donald Trump and his 18 co-defendants. Her removal follows revelations of a prior relationship with the lead prosecutor. The fate of the sweeping criminal racketeering case against Trump is unclear, but it's likely to be paused as Trump returns to office or dismissed altogether. Luigi Mangione, the suspect in the shooting death of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson, was arraigned in a New York court Thursday after being extradited from Pennsylvania and charged with murder, 2 stalking charges, and a firearms offense. The federal murder charge carries a possible death penalty. Mangione had already been facing state murder and terrorism charges. A handcuffed Mangione was led into custody by a massive escort in New York, including heavily armed police and Mayor Eric Adams. The case has galvanized public outrage over the U.S. health insurance industry. We'll have more on this story later in the broadcast. A former top advisor to embattled New York Mayor Eric Adams was indicted on bribery and conspiracy charges Thursday. Ingrid Lewis-Martin resigned Sunday ahead of the expected indictment. Her son and 2 real estate agents were also charged in the case, which accused them of making over $100,000 in exchange for expediting approvals on construction projects. It's just the latest indictment of a close associate of Mayor Adams, who himself was indicted in a federal corruption case. President Biden laid out a new target to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by up to 66% in 2035 compared to 2005 levels. The Biden administration says that even with Trump's return to office, that target can still be met if states and local governments commit to their emission reduction goals. Independent studies have shown the U.S. is not currently on track to meet such targets. Meanwhile, a group of employees from the Environmental Protection Agency and the Department of Energy published an open letter to the White House Thursday condemning the withholding of federal climate funds from the group Climate Justice Alliance after it spoke out against genocide in Gaza. The group called on the U.S. agencies to end their collaboration with Israel, writing, quote, "We decry the prioritization of funding for bombs and tanks over the resourcing of communities impacted by accelerating climate disasters." In Sudan, the World Food Program is reporting at least 3 of its staff were killed in an aerial bombardment. It's unclear if the attack was carried out by the Sudanese army or paramilitary rapid support forces, which have intensified their fighting as the war in Sudan enters its 20th month. The agency warns Sudan risks becoming the world's largest hunger crisis in recent history, with 1.7 million people either facing famine or at risk of famine. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken Thursday announced $200 million in humanitarian aid to Sudan. Meanwhile, Reuters reports the Biden administration has vowed to provide U.S. lawmakers an assessment on whether the United Arab Emirates is providing weapons to the rapid support forces by January 17th. Both warring parties in Sudan have been accused of human rights violations. French President Emmanuel Macron was met with protests and booing crowds Thursday as he toured the devastating aftermath of Cyclone Chido in the Indian Ocean islands of Mayotte, which is a French territory. Anger's mounting over the insufficient aid delivered since the disaster. Only 31 deaths have been confirmed, but many fear the true toll could be in the thousands. Survivors say they've been left with nothing.
Nothing. All the food we had, the rice, the meat, the sugar, it's all gone. All the fruits, the mangoes that were left, all gone. We have nothing to eat. I want to ask that when the help arrives, that it's shared with everybody, not only for people with identity documents, undocumented people as well, because we're all facing the same struggle.
In Nigeria, at least 35 children were killed in a crowd crush at a school fair in the southwestern city of Ibadan. Police have arrested 8 people, including the main sponsor of the event, which had said it expected some 5,000 children to take part after advertising gifts and prizes, including scholarships. And Ecuador has converted part of its $1.5 billion external debt into a fund aimed at the protection of forests and wetlands in the Amazon rainforest. The Ecuadorian government renegotiated its debt, resulting in some $460 million in savings that'll be allocated toward the efforts. Ecuadorian President Daniel Noboa praised the completion of the country's second debt for nature swap.
The demand for this program has been incredible. It has been more than 4 times what we were actually able to place. This is a good sign. It is a sign for the future that there can be mechanisms like this on a slightly larger scale and can generate a more significant impact.
And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. Democracy Now! Is funded by viewers like you. Please give today at democracynow.org/give.